They moved quickly through the forest. Lymphocytus, who could see best, led the way. The others followed, and Roland had to keep his hand on Lymphocytus's shoulder to avoid stumbling. The sky had lightened faintly in the east, that first hint that dawn existed somewhere beyond the immediate darkness, but it didn't help much yet. Trees were still just shapes, the ground still uncertain under their feet. They tried to create as much distance as possible, moving what they thought was north for about an hour. They heard no sounds behind them, no calls, no footsteps. When they reached a decent spot under a spruce, they waited for dawn. None of them slept. Adrenaline was still pumping, but it was cold without bedrolls, and the damp ground didn't help. "Remember when I said we should buy warmer clothes because it's usually cold in the mountains?" Penny asked. Not at the trading post, but I do now," Lymphocytus replied. Then they went quiet. The only one who said anything occasionally was Roland, and it was mostly profanity. Light came slowly, gray first, then gradual definition as shapes separated from darkness. In the dawn light, Penny saw the wound on Roland's neck properly, the bite marks, how much damage her little dagger must have done when she'd cut his side. The guilt hit fresh, seeing it in daylight. "Sorry," she said quietly. Lymphocytus leaned forward to look. "Yeah, that looks really bad, Roland." Roland touched it gingerly. You should see the other guy." "I did see him," Lymphocytus pointed out. "Remember? The light orb? All that stuff?" Penny managed a small smile. "See, I told you you'd be useful." Lymphocytus pulled his knees up, wrapped his arms around them. "Maybe, but I've never been so scared in my entire life." "You did awesome, though." Roland was warming up now, energy returning slowly. "You too, Penny. What a crew. What a fight." "But we lost," Lymphocytus said. "Because they're cowards who play dirty," Roland protested. "Who attacks someone while they're sleeping?" "Smart creatures," Penny said. "Maybe we should do that to them." "Yeah, now it's payback time!" Roland prodded at his neck again, winced. "I need that armor. And hey, Lympho, we didn't lose jack shit. We just regrouped a little." "If you say so, Sir Roland," Lymphocytus replied. "If you say so." The sun continued rising, revealing more of where they actually were, deeper into unfamiliar forest than any of them had intended to go, without supplies, without proper rest, with injuries that would hurt more once the adrenaline fully wore off. But they were alive, which hadn't been guaranteed an hour ago. Roland kept touching the wound on his neck, checking how bad it was, trying to decide if it needed actual treatment or if he could just ignore it and hope for the best. Penny had started studying the ground, looking for tracks, planning their return. "Have you found anything?" Roland asked. I think so," she answered. "Tracks, pretty small, leading that way. That's where we came from, isn't it?" She pointed. Lymphocytus looked in that direction. The sun was too low to see directly, so he tried to determine where the light was coming from. Difficult, but he was fairly certain. "Yes, that's the way. A few hours and we'll be back there, at most." Roland brightened. "And then we show them who's in charge." "Yes, but that means they cover huge stretches of forest if they also travel here regularly," Penny said. "I just think we should be careful." They moved in the direction Penny had indicated. Morning light filtered through the canopy, the forest's undergrowth caught at their clothes, wet with dew that soaked through fabric and made everything heavier. After about an hour, they began questioning whether they were headed the right direction. The trees seemed to stand more sparse here, and it smelled different than yesterday. The air felt stagnant despite there being no lack of breeze. They stopped abruptly when they saw it. An enormous oak, older than everything around it and significantly larger than any other tree they'd seen in the forest. The trunk was massive, gnarled, roots spreading like arteries across the forest floor. "Damn, that's huge," Roland said. "It's the kind of oak you almost feel reverence for," Penny added. "Makes you want to thank the gods we didn't cut it down." Sure, but logging isn't all bad," Lymphocytus joked. "You can make books out of trees." They stood some distance away, observing. There appeared to be bushes in front of the trunk, and in front of the bushes the ground was trampled, regrown, then trampled again. High up in the canopy, branches were worn. The bark was scratched. Strange damage. "I think I heard something rustling in there." Penny slowed, head tilted toward the brush. Roland didn't even look up. "You're imagining things. I didn't hear anything." "I definitely heard something." She stepped off the path already. "I'm checking." Lymphocytus shifted uneasily behind them. "Is that wise? What if it's those dog monsters?" They argued about what to do. No one had wanted to say it aloud, but they were clearly somewhat lost, and perhaps Lymphocytus's navigation wasn't entirely flawless. He eventually admitted his mistake, and they agreed Penny would approach the oak and call out while the others lay in ambush behind nearby trees. Roland took Penny's crossbow. Penny walked toward the tree and called out, "Hello? Is anyone friendly in there?" The ground under her feet was soft, old leaves and earth worn down by many footsteps. As she approached the oak, she noticed a rounded opening hidden behind the bushes. It wasn't natural. Someone had cleared away rotten wood by hand. Her voice echoed damply inside the trunk as if the tree swallowed the sound. A moment passed. 2. Then a voice answered from within the oak, soft and almost tender, though slightly slow to respond. "Friendly?" A brief pause. "It's been a long time since anyone asked that way." While the voice spoke, Penny heard a faint creak above her, high in the branches. It wasn't wind. She couldn't see clearly, but it sounded like weight shifting. The voice continued, still calm. "You're not standing right. Nobody stands here. But that doesn't mean you're wrong." Strange way to talk, Penny thought. But no threat was spoken, no offer either. She continued. "Right, so we were attacked by some dog creatures with long arms last night. Got chased all night. And it doesn't look better than that we're lost. We'd really appreciate help finding our way back to where we came from. We have an old map that..." "Oh, right. We had an old map, but all our things were stolen." Penny barely finished the sentence before the voice answered, still soft, still friendly, but something had changed. "Long arms." He tasted the words. "They take what's left behind. What's carried too high." She heard movement inside the trunk as if whoever was there leaned closer to the opening without stepping out. At the same time, a careful scraping sound came from above, bark being touched, slowly, deliberately. "You're not lost," the voice said. "You're just not welcome where you think you are. If you want to leave," he continued, "someone must show the way. Paths require trust." A pause. "Come closer. I hear better then," the man beckoned. Penny hesitated. She glanced back. Lymphocytus shook his head. Roland gave her a thumbs up. "Well, I suppose I can do that, if you promise not to bite," she said, stepping carefully toward the opening. As Penny moved forward, the figure emerged into the clearing's light. A thin, barefoot man, dressed in what had once been priestly robes, now reduced to layered fabric and dirt. His eyes were clear, too clear, never quite settling on her face, sliding past her as if he saw something behind her. Bite? A dry, brief laugh. No. Animals bite. Penny focused entirely on the strange man before her and missed what Roland saw. A branch above her bending slowly downward under controlled weight. The man extended one hand toward her, palm up, as though helping her over the roots. "You can stand here," he said. "But if I am to show the way, I must know who you are." Roland spotted the predator above, a large feline lowering itself along the branch. Long body, powerful hind legs, tail hanging heavy. Its matte fur blended almost perfectly with the bark. Head low, eyes fixed on Penny. Ready to pounce. He raised the crossbow. "Just aim," Lymphocytus whispered. "Only shoot if it becomes critical." "Wow, tremendous confidence in my reflexes," Roland murmured back, "and completely insane priorities for what counts as critical." Penny hesitated before taking the man's wrinkled yet surprisingly strong hand. Something in his eyes stopped her. It isn't an offer, she realized. It's a test. If she took it, she would accept terms she didn't yet understand. The man noticed. The smile remained, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Well," he said calmly, "one cannot stand in the forest forever." Lymphocytus sensed the conversation slipping away. Maybe he could help, though social magic required social confidence, something he wasn't certain he possessed. He stepped forward, inhaled deeply, and tried to shape power between his hands. It resisted. He hesitated. A black cloud burst into existence around the predator, Penny, and the man. A thick, pulsing shadow mist that swallowed sound to be instant it formed. "Fantastic," Roland said. "How am I supposed to see what I'm aiming at now?" Lymphocytus lowered his hands. "I knew I didn't have it in me," he said quietly. Penny saw more. The old man froze mid-movement. His face softened in a way that didn't belong there. His gaze lost focus on Penny and instead sought upward toward the branches. And now Penny finally saw it. A predator that had prepared to pounce on her. She screamed, but she noticed how it interrupted its action, relaxed its muscles. It made a low, vibrating sound, satisfied and recognizing. "Oh my, what happened, dear man? Are you smoking, or have you burned something in the oven? And what a beautiful animal in the tree. Do you know it?" Penny said thickly with a chirping voice. The cloud thinned but lingered as a shadow in the air. The old man blinked several times as if waking from a daydream. He laughed briefly, hoarse, and stroked his chest where his heart beat hard. "Smoke," he said. Yes, it does sometimes. The world leaks, sort of." His face softened further. His voice became low, almost reverent. "She's beautiful, isn't she? She listens better than people." The predator moved on the branch. The tail swung slowly, eyes open and fixed on both of them. The man took half a step out of the oak, but stopped. He pulled back his extended hand and placed it close to his body, as if protecting something invisible. The atmosphere was slightly tense, but Penny felt that uncertain element in the situation had disappeared. "What are you doing out here in the forest with such a fine feline? Are they native to the area? I can see from your clothes that you might be a priest of some kind. Aren't those supposed to help people in need? I'm just asking for a friend." The wrinkled old man laughed low, this time without ambiguity in his voice. "Priest," he said, tasting the word. "Yes, once. The forest took over where the temple stopped listening." He patted the trunk behind him with an open hand. "The cats here are older than the paths. They were here before people started calling things theirs. He looked up at the tree again. The predator lay still, claws no longer visible. He turned his gaze back to Penny. "I help people who don't lie to themselves," he said calmly, "and people who know when they're lost." He pointed faintly to the southeast, away from the direction they'd come from. "You went wrong. Not far, but enough." Then, after a brief pause, "I can show you back to where you were attacked. It's happened before, but you leave no blood here, and you take nothing that sleeps." He waited. Behind him, a low, slow purring came from the treetop. "The thing is, we need to prove ourselves useful. And to be useful, we need to have... there are more of us than just me. I said that, right?" She pointed toward where her companions were hidden. "So, we need to get our stuff back from those with long limbs and dog faces. We don't really know what they were." She paused, calculating. "And we've already left blood, our own, spilled when we fled the attack. And you only lie to gain an advantage. And I'd really like some advantages right now. If you show us the way, we'd be eternally grateful." The old man tilted his head and observed her for a long time. "Blood counts," he said finally. "What's spilled in flight doesn't call for more." He followed her gesture toward the forest where the others were hiding. He didn't seem surprised they were there. "Those with long limbs," he continued, "don't take to own. They take to lure. Leave them alone and they come back. Go straight after them and you'll be seen. I'll show you to the edge where their tracks divide. No further. From there you choose yourselves, retrieve your things, or keep your lives." The man looked Penny in the eyes. "Should I show the way now?" he said calmly. "Or should you finish talking with the forest first?" "Don't suppose the cat wants to come along for a bit?" Penny asked. "Maybe she's good at tracking, and we could talk with the forest on the way?" The man smiled crookedly. "She doesn't follow. She escorts." Mid-sentence, he took a step past Penny and began walking again. "The forest talks all the time," he said without turning around. "The question is just which of you answers when it does." Penny grew curious about what it looked like inside the old man's tree. She took a step forward and leaned against the trunk to peer inside. What she immediately perceived was darkness and smell. Damp leaves, old wood, earth. Something that had lived here a long time. She saw a pile of dry leaves further in, roughly thrown together pieces of wood functioning as seating and table. Nothing gleamed. Nothing stood out as valuable at a quick glance. It was cramped, and light only reached a few inches in. She couldn't help herself. Nimble as she was, she stuck her hand under one of the leaf piles to feel if there was anything of value there to slip into a pocket. She glanced toward the men who'd emerged from their hiding spots to greet the man. The leaves rustled. Her hand went deep enough to feel earth under her fingers. Not just leaves, something harder. Wood. Edge. She hooked her fingers, pulled quickly and silently. A small chest. Not large. Buried shallowly, precisely where you'd miss it if you didn't know to look. When she withdrew her hand, the object disappeared into folds of clothing as naturally as if it had always been there. She was about to rejoin the group that had gotten some distance down the path when something large but graceful took off and landed beside her. The predator, walking calmly at her side. Penny almost got dizzy from how cool it felt. Penny and the predator caught up with the others and heard Lymphocytus and the old man talking. "Are you a priest or a druid? Do you believe in the Allfather or Helm like they do in the Keep? though I'm uncertain if they actually do when it comes down to it. The man answered without hesitation, as if the question wasn't new to him. He laughed dryly, a short sound. "Priest?" he said. "Druid?" He shook his head. "Those are words people use when they want the world to be simple." He placed his hand against a tree he stood beside, as if feeling the pulse in it. "I prayed to gods once, all kinds. They didn't answer me." A pause. His gaze slid toward the forest around the group. "The All-Father watches over law and oath. Helm over duty and gates." He smiled crookedly. "Here, there's neither law nor gates. I believe in what answers when you speak to it. The forest answers. Stones remember. Blood shows the way." He looked at Lymphocytus now, more focused. "So if you seek Helm, you've gone wrong. If you seek someone who can show where you're bleeding from, then you've come right." Silence fell. The group looked at each other, and the man didn't wait for a formal answer. When no one contradicted him, he began moving again, slowly but purposefully, in between trees where the ground was soft with needles and leaves. They walked without a path. The man chose direction based on things that didn't look like choices. The slope of the ground, where moss was trampled, where branches were broken. He pointed sometimes, rarely said more than a word at a time. The forest was denser again, sounds dampened. Birds were heard in the distance, but nothing near. The ground sloped gently upward. After a while, tracks appeared, not clear footprints, but signs. Scraped bark, long marks in the ground where something had been dragged, broken twigs at chest height. The man stopped at such a place and crouched. He didn't touch anything, just looked. The feline stiffened. Its tail moved slowly from side to side. The man said quietly, without looking at them, "Those you met didn't go far. They don't go straight, and they're always more than you first think." He stood again and continued walking. Something gnawed at Roland's thoughts. He thought about what the old man had said. That thing about blood and showing where we're bleeding. What did you mean by that? And I was wondering if you know where in the forest one can make oneself useful somewhere. If maybe there are people who've gotten lost in the forest or been kidnapped by those dog creatures. Because one of them actually seemed to try to hold me more than kill me. And he actually had rope on him, I saw later. But I told him off good. The old man answered after a while, quietly. Blood is direction. Blood is promise. When you bleed in the forest knows who you are. He stopped at a place where the ground was trampled and darker than around it. You left tracks that aren't erased by morning. What, are we here? Roland asked. Yes, don't you see it? Penny said. Here's the fire pit. There we slept, though it's still very well camouflaged. And there was my armor, Roland said, defeated. The man continued answering Roland's questions, completely unconcerned about what the others had said. The forest doesn't take people. People are taken in the forest. A pause. Sometimes to be eaten, sometimes to be traded. Sometimes because they went wrong and no one went after. He met Roland's gaze. It was the first time the man had looked at him. You weren't wrong. The one who grabbed you last night didn't want to kill you there. He stared exactly at the spot where Roland and the dog beast had fought. Penny had been watching the predator mostly, not really paying attention to the others anymore. It circled her a few times, close enough she could smell it, that wild animal musk mixed with something sharper, then moved ahead. nose low, tracking something she couldn't see. No path existed here, she'd checked, but it walked like one did anyway. "Where are you going, little friend?" She said it without thinking, realized how stupid it sounded. "Big friend, rather." The predator stopped. Ears swiveled back toward her voice, but it didn't turn around. Just waited, then kept walking. Penny glanced at her companions. Roland, digging through dirt like a child searching for treasure. Lymphocytus crouched over something he'd found, both of them absorbed. Then back at the predator, already disappearing between trees. The hell with it. She followed. "Who's trading people in the forest?" Roland asked the man. "Those dog things? They were pretty weak one-on-one, but there were tons of them. And what do you even trade people for? Pine cones?" A pause, probably waiting for a response that wasn't coming. "You seem to know a lot for someone living in a tree." The old man's answer came cryptic as before. Roland wondered if he did it deliberately or if he'd just been alone too long and forgotten how normal conversation worked. "Those who can't count gold trade other things. Time, blood, services." His voice got quieter. "Trades don't happen here. People are taken there. Nobody goes voluntarily." He got louder, looking at Roland directly. "And you don't trade people with money here." The predator moved calmly ahead of Penny. Not hunting, not sneaking, just purposeful. "It knows where it's going," Penny thought. "Wants to show me something." Branches shifted overhead. No wind, just weight redistributing, and fear spiked through her chest before she registered the lack of alarm calls. No birds screaming warnings, no small animals fleeing. The ground darkened, got damper. The smell changed, rot and metal, which meant that blood had been spilled here recently. The predator stopped briefly, looked back at her with those unreadable eyes, continued. "Making sure I'm following," she realized. "It likes me. Lucky for me. Would be significantly worse if it didn't." Back at the old camp, Lymphocytus searched methodically, crouched low, hands careful. Roland kicked at dirt with his boots, spraying earth onto Lymphocytus's travel cloak. "Do you mind?" Lymphocytus didn't look up, voice tight with irritation. "No, I don't mind," Roland grinned. "Go ahead, continue." The old man watched them searching. "You camped there," he said matter-of-factly. "It was already decided then." "What was decided? Who decided what?" Roland asked. The man didn't answer. He scratched his hip and just stared at him presumptuously. Near the fire's edge, Lymphocytus found a neatly folded parchment strip trampled into the moss. It was stained with soot and some dirt. He quickly unfolded it and saw it was still readable. The parchment they'd gotten from the merchant, or negotiated for more accurately. Right, he thought. Things like this are only important to those who can read, and the monsters didn't exactly give off scholarly vibes, though he can't decipher the symbols on it either. But that doesn't make it unimportant. He was sure of that. The old man watched them both, made those sounds old men make, half grunt, half sigh. When Roland couldn't stand doing nothing anymore, words burst out. "Want to come with us? Where they do the trading? Maybe you're combat trained. Or a magician. You people are usually a bit crazy, talk nonsense." Lymphocytus snorted, exhaustion bleeding through. "Just because you don't understand what someone's saying doesn't mean it's unimportant." The old man tilted his head slightly towards Lymphocytus. After a moment, he spoke, not really answering anything. "Places where people are traded are rarely places where you fight. They're places where you wait for someone to give up first." He looked toward the forest, pointed in the same direction. I'm going there to see if anything remains that shouldn't. He started moving, slow but deliberate. Didn't check if they followed. Where's Penny? Lymphocytus had just noticed her absence, voice climbing with worry. Roland waved it off. She probably went ahead, don't worry. Then to the old man. What's your name, anyway? We can't call you old man or priest all day. The man stopped, looked at them silently, then, names are for people who want to be remembered. Brief pause. You can call me Eldrin. Then you can remember me.